Welcome to Fireside Giants, a featured podcast by Empire Sports Media. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, and my co-host, Anthony the Great Rivardo. Give us a follow on Twitter if you haven't already, Alex Wilson ESM, Anthony_Rivardo. Make sure to smash the subscribe button on YouTube and leave that great review on iTunes. We are here to provide Giants information, news, and with waiver wire things going on and cuts and the season right around the corner, we are hyped, excited, and ready to get going with finally the regular season, which felt like it's been like 5 years since we've last watched Giants football. Hopefully it's a better product on the field this year. But to get started, how are you doing today, Anthony?
I'm doing great. 1 week until we get to watch our New York Giants play some football, so I am very excited. I can't wait for that. I'm ready to watch the Chiefs and Texans face off on Thursday. Just ready for football to be back. Super excited and very happy now. I'm a happy boy.
Happy boy. Let's try to do the Dave Gettleman impression for the fighting Joe Judges. I don't even know how to do his Boston accent. The fighting. How would you do that? Are you better at this than I am?
No, definitely not. Fighting Joe Judges. I don't know. That didn't sound very
like
Boston.
Italian. You're just a
Yeah,
mobster
well,
now.
I am Italian, so
That's
just
your
talking,
default.
just talking like my family members, I guess. I don't know.
I hear that. But the fighting Joe Judges are set to take the field against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 1 on Monday Night Football. I'm hyped as hell. We got a lot to be excited about, a lot to be scared about too. And that's kind of what we're going to break down today, along with the cuts, the surprise cuts, a waiver claims, what they have to offer, and really what's happening with this roster as it develops under new head coach Joe Judge, what he's doing. I can't lie, I've been pretty confused over some of the moves he's made, but I trust him 100%. We would have seen in previous years guys like Pat Shermer, Ben McAdoo holding on to bigger names because in theory bigger names would hold more value, hold more potential. That's not often the case, especially when you have young guys that are developing, maybe not known as much, ready to make a name for themselves, and that's going to kind of get us off with the cuts and kind of surprises. Anthony, I'm going to let you give us your impression on some of these cuts and why you're a little concerned, maybe confused at them.
Okay, so there's two surprise cuts that I think happened with the Giants this week. One of which was very surprising to everybody, I think. Everybody was surprised by Ryan Connolly. I think I was less surprised than most people, though, because if our long-term listeners recall, months ago, I think even when we still had Mike on the podcast, we were talking about Ryan Connolly, and I was saying I'm not that confident in Ryan Connolly right now. Like, we haven't heard anything about him for months. He was dealing with the ACL injury. Who knows if he'll even be ready by the regular season? Who knows if he'll be the same player when he comes back? So many question marks about Ryan Connolly. Everybody was ready to put him in the starting lineup and say he is linebacker too. I wasn't ready to do that. I didn't think he was ever going to be a starting linebacker. David Mayo was going to be the other starting linebacker. And then when they drafted 4 linebackers in their final 5 picks, I guess the writing was on the wall for Ryan Connolly. We were a little blind to it. We didn't realize it. We all were hoping Ryan Connolly would come back and be great because he played so good in those first 3 games. And it was very exciting watching him, play like that. But I guess the Giants, maybe, throughout training camp, whatever, maybe he just wasn't that impressive. I know he had to take a week off dealing with like knee tightness or something. So maybe they said he's fully healthy. Joe Judge said he's fully healthy, and he wanted him to make it through the waiver wire to put him on the practice squad, but it didn't happen. And like I said, I'm surprised by it. I'm just not super surprised by it. I wish that he was still on the roster, though, because I do think there's a lot of potential. And I think Dave Gettleman has said many times in the past, you do not give up on talent, and I feel like they kind of gave up on talent when they cut Ryan Connolly. Just because I know he was coming back from that knee injury, but if he can come back from that, he is a talented player. I think he proved that last year. A 5th-round draft pick looked much better than a 5th-round draft pick in those first 3 or 4 games. So, like I said, I think he gave up on talent there, so I'm a little upset with it, but I didn't see him as a starter this year anyway. And then the other surprise cut is Corey Coleman. This is the one that I'm actually frustrated by and kind of pissed off about. Corey Coleman, I think, has just done everything right. He's battled through so much adversity. He's gone through hell and back to get where he is. And I felt like he really got back to a starting level spot. He could be a starter on a team, I think. I think that, you see every clip that possible from training camp, and he just looks good, and he looks ready. He looks faster. He's catching the ball better, and I know he dealt with the ACL injury as well, and it's kind of a weird pattern that the Giants took the two guys coming off of ACL injuries and cut both of them. So I don't know if that is going to be a trend for the future as well. If when somebody gets a torn ACL, the Giants are then going to look at them differently. So that's what it looks like right now. But they did replace him with Damian Ratley. So I know you're going to talk about the waiver wire guys. And I'm kind of okay with it now. We got Damian Ratley. It's made me warm up a little bit, but I don't know, man. It doesn't sit right with me. I think Corey Coleman really deserved this spot, and I'm very upset that he's not on this team.
Yeah, I mean, you make good arguments for both of them, and I tried to think about this very practically from both sides of the picture, right? So I tried to see this from Joe Judge's perspective in relation to Ryan Connolly specifically, I'll talk about first. I tried to see this from Joe Judge's side and then from our side. From our side, we saw a player who had, 2 interceptions, some really good playing time in the first 4 games of the season in 2019, which was his rookie campaign. A lot of promise. Like you said, Dave Gettleman doesn't want to give up on talent. Now, from Joe Judge's perspective, Devontae Downs came in here, looked really, really sharp, increased confidence. He's a big guy at 6'2", 250 pounds. I really like Devontae Downs and his physical. He's a very physical specimen at the linebacker position. Now, what this says to me is that he preferred to keep his guys over last year's guys, right? He does not care about sentimentality. He doesn't care about giving someone a second chance. He just wants to win football games, right? In the past few years, Corey Coleman wasn't kept on the roster because of this insane talent. It felt more sentimental than that. It felt like they kept him because they wanted to keep giving him chances after chances after chances. That's a roster spot that, you could have been utilizing to develop somebody else. And I think they gave Joe Judge the power to say, this is your roster, this is your team, take advantage of it, do what you have to do to make this a successful organization, because Dave Gettleman's been here for a couple years now and we haven't even seen a glimpse of success. So I imagine they probably told Joe Judge, this is your chance, go out there and make this team good. Make them competitive at the very least. Just feel good about every game, week in and week out. Now, that meant cutting dead weight. Look, I liked Corey Coleman too. I thought he looked really sharp during camp, but apparently CJ Board also looked really sharp during camp. He came in, he has a year of experience with the Jaguars. Now he's on the Giants, and he can also play multiple roles. Maybe he could be a kick returner or a gunner, who knows. He's also the tallest receiver on the roster now at 6'2". So that's also a reason to retain him. Now you have Connolly, who, coming off a significant injury, had what I believe to be knee inflammation. That's already problematic. That's another injury waiting to happen, by the way. One wrong step, if that knee is weak and it's already getting inflamed in practice during a game, one wrong tweak and bam, that guy's done. That's another injury. So I was a little concerned about that, and like you said previously, you were right to be cautious with Connolly. I was very optimistic with Connolly. I thought he looked fantastic. A lot of players around the league have returned from ACL tears, so I totally understand that. But I don't feel bad. I don't feel like they made the biggest mistake in the world. I hope he does really well with the Minnesota Vikings, but I feel as though this is Joe Judge's team. He's doing what he thinks is best for the team, and we have to trust the process, because every process that we've been led down the past few years has been a failure. It's good to see they're doing something different. They're not listening to the fans when we call for someone to be kept on the roster. You know what I mean? When we beg and beg and beg for Alex Tanney or even Eli, the organization has... and the organization has come and actually said, we value the fans' opinion, and it's not worked, right? Of course, they should be looking at the fans and kind of feeling the atmosphere and where they should be going with the team. But the reality is we've been terrible. I'd rather them listen to Joe Judge and be a winning team than listen to us and be a losing team. That's just the reality of football. It's a business. It just is what it is. So we move forward, and like you said, the Giants got a few good waiver claims. So I'm going to read about a little bit what they have to offer, and what should we be expecting from some of these guys that we had no idea about before yesterday. So the first guy they got was safety from the Chiefs, was Adrian Colbert. He also played 5 games and started 5 games and played in 6 with the Miami Dolphins last year, so he has experience with Patrick Graham. He actually looks pretty good. He has some quick twitch instincts, can get to the ball carrier quickly. He had 22 combined tackles, 2 passes defended. He held opposing pass catches to a 33.3% completion rate against, which is really, really good. He did miss almost 20% of his tackles, which is very, very bad. He has a lot of upside in coverage, which is why they probably brought him in. He's a special teams guy in 2017 with the 49ers, 36% of defensive snaps. And, you know, that special teams factor should play a good part in his usage. Then you have Damian Ratley, who you mentioned before. And you also said before the podcast that he was a younger version of Corey Coleman, right?
That's what some people on Twitter are saying. I was reading around on Twitter just trying to do a little more research on him before the podcast, and I saw some fans saying that Cleveland Browns fans are very upset that the Browns let Damian Ratley go, and a lot of people are comparing him to a younger Corey Coleman. That's who he looks like, but without the injury history. And I'll throw out a quick stat that I have on Damian Ratley. He ran a 4.45 40-yard dash, which is pretty solid. He's 6'2". So I think that makes him the tallest receiver on the roster, as you mentioned earlier. 6'2" is that threshold. And he was one of only 9 receivers in 2019 that did not have a drop among wideouts with 20-plus targets. So he's got some pretty sure hands, which is definitely a good thing. So pretty positive there. Maybe he's the guy who can, you know, replace Corey Coleman's spot and maybe be that burner, big body guy and a little more reliable with the hands and durability. So maybe it takes a sting away a little bit, but, you know, I'm still not over this one. I really wish Corey Coleman was on this roster.
No, I hear that. And, you know, Damian Ratley, 25 years old, he screams kick returner to me, to be honest with you. 6'2", 4.45", you know, good hands, reliable in that facet. You just want a guy that can catch the ball sometimes, because last year, the amount of times we've seen Giants kick returners muff punts and whatnot, I'm pretty tired of that. So I think he could fit that role for us. He's on the 53-man roster, so he's active. They can utilize him. He had 200 yards and 1 touchdown last year, 50% catch rate. So I don't know. 18% of special team snaps last year with the Browns. It's going to be interesting to see how they use him. I don't know much about him aside from what we've read. But if they think he can play a role, and that leads me back to, before we hit on the last waiver wire claim, Joe Judge's team. Everybody on this team is meant to fill a specified role. They're meant to target specific details within the game and fill a very, very specific void. And that's the type of team that we're going to see with Joe Judge. Is very Bill Belichick-esque in the sense that everybody has a job to do, and they have to do their job to perfection. If everybody does their job, we will be a good football team. You know, you don't need elite caliber players that can do it all to be a good football team, and that's what the Patriots have shown. You need guys who are going to do their job, very specific, defined role, at a very high level, utilizing their strengths at a very high level, and that's all you need, right? That's all you need. Like you don't have someone in the office. Let's say you have a regular company. You don't have a salesperson doing the accounting and the delivering of products. You know, you don't have someone doing that. You have a person defined for every specific role that matches up with their strengths. The Giants have been asking some of their players, like, for example, Evan Ingram, to be a wide receiver, or for Saquon Barkley to be a running back and a wide receiver. Like, they can do it, but you want Saquon Barkley to be an elite running back first. You know, you want Evan Ingram, if they want him to be a wide receiver, like a pass-catching tight end, that's where they're going to use him. He's not going to be blocking in the run game all that often. You know what I mean? Like, use your players to your strengths. That's what Joe Judge is going to do, and I'm excited to finally see that kind of concept applied. That leads me to my final waiver wire claim, Jackson Barton. So Jackson Barton, formerly of the Utah College, was drafted in the 7th round last year by the Colts. He is 6'7" and 302 pounds, which is huge. He's a big body. 25 years old, pretty good physical attributes. He probably will learn a thing or two from Mark Colombo, which I'm pretty happy about. He's tough. This is what Lance Zierlein, this is what he said about him. He's tough and has adequate strength to battle for position as a run blocker, but NFL opponents are sure to take advantage of his lack of leverage and his issues against inside moves and rush counters. That's the biggest concern. He's a good run blocker, but, you know, developing that side of him, just pass blocking and whatnot, and just leverage issues, that is where Mark Colombo will come in and help. But again, I think he's more of a reserve option, obviously, so we'll see where we go with that.
Yeah, he also had a 4.66 second shuttle time, which would have tied for second in this year's draft class with Andrew Thomas at the Combine. So that's also a pretty cool stat there. Definitely has some athleticism to go along with that ginormous frame that you mentioned, 6'7", 310 pounds. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I'm super familiar with like any of these guys. I just know what I've read, short stats and everything. But you know, the Giants do need offensive tackle depth, especially after the opt out by Nate Solder. It's better to have more players there. It's one of the most important positions in all of football is offensive tackle. So Jackson Barton being added to the roster is just another depth piece that we can point out and say that if things get really bad, we do have another guy who could step up and man the position.
Yeah, no, exactly. Having depth on the offensive line is something that we haven't had in recent years. I mean, let's think about this. Like 3 years ago, our starting tackles were what? Eric Flowers and Bobby Hart.
The greatest tackle duo of all time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you like garbage cans, then you probably should give them to the Houston Astros and see what they could do with them. It's embarrassing. It really is. That was a time where I was embarrassed to be a Giants fan when they walked out Bobby Hart and Eric Flowers onto the field and thought we could win games. We had Weston Richburg, Justin Pugh, who was always injured, and then we had John Jerry at guard. Like, the fact that I can't even. I have no words. Just stumbling over myself thinking about how poor
those days are behind us.
They're behind us. They're behind us.
We can sleep.
It's okay.
We can sleep now.
I need like a hypnosis or something. I can sleep now. But no, the offensive line. Fast forward to present day. Andrew Thomas, Kevin Zeitler, Will Hernandez, Nick Gates, Cam Fleming, Matt Parrott, Shane Lemieux. That is head and shoulders above what we had. Of course, not proven yet. Still a lot of room to develop and a lot of room to grow, and nothing's established. We still have to see what they can do. But the reality is, we are actually in a position to compete in the future instead of wondering what the hell are we doing. Where the hell are we going? I can see the direction. Like if you think about it, do you feel like you can see the direction of this team right now? That you feel confident where we're going?
I do, just because, and I know ESPN, there was an article, it was either ESPN or The Athletic. They did the top talent under 25, and the Giants ranked second. And that's the direction of this team, is we're building a young, youthful team, setting ourselves up for the future. You could see that in the defensive backfield, the secondary. You got Xavier McKinney's hurt, yeah, but it's a long-term plan at safety with him, with Julian Love, with Jabril Peppers, he's also young. And then, the cornerbacks, Darnay Holmes, who we all think is going to be special. Great. He's super young. James Bradbury is the oldest guy in the secondary, and he's, 27? That's not even old, and he's the oldest guy. Yep. So it's a young team with tons of potential, and the direction that Dave Gettleman is going or Joe Judge is going, the way they're going is build through the trenches, the offensive and defensive line. I think the offensive line, it's unproven, so I'm not going to call it a strength yet, but there's a chance if these unproven commodities actually turn out to be what we think they will be, there's a chance that's actually one of the strengths of this team by the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And we already know the defensive line is a strength of this team. It's probably the strongest position group on this team. So they're building through the trenches, and then they're going to work their way up. They've also gotten pieces in the secondary, but I'm thinking the offense, the direction that that's going, they're going to keep finding pieces on that offensive line. Even though we think they found them all, they might just find guys who are even better next year. You never know. Draft over players. And I think Dave Gettleman said that. He said he's not afraid to draft over players or whatever, because if you find someone more talented, you got to go with the more talented guy. So, I think that offensive line is just going to continue to develop and get better. And then we're going to see them start to prioritize the wide receivers, the tight end position, maybe add another guy there. Yeah. The skill positions. That's next. And then that applies also to the defense. They're going to get even more players in the linebacker core. I think eventually they got to address the edge rusher position and try and get like a top tier guy there. And I just think that they wanted to get the defensive line set, and now next year, that's the next step. I think next year we're going to see them try and really prioritize the edge rusher position, and whether that be in the first round of the NFL draft, try and get their guy, or whether that be in free agency if another big name hits the market.
Yep.
I think they'll be in play for it next year. Like I don't think it made sense for them to be in play for Clowney this year or any of the pass rushers, but next year it makes more sense, and I think that's the direction they're going to go.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I think that was the big question for me. Where do they go next year in this draft, right? And in my opinion, there's three ways I would go. The first one, if Jamar Chase is on the board, I'm taking him, no questions asked. No questions asked. You're taking Jamar Chase. The second one, I actually would rather go linebacker than pass rusher. Because, like, a guy, not like a regular linebacker, but like a... Yes, exactly. I'd go like Micah Parsons, like a all-around elite linebacker, and then I would address the pass rushers in free agency. I don't like drafting pass rushers unless they're guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like Chase
I mean,
Young.
it's a volatile position, but this is all dependent also on where we finish, where our
That's
draft
exactly
pick
right.
is, because, if we're picking... Because here's the thing. I wrote this article last week about best and worst case scenarios. Best case scenario is obviously winning the Super Bowl, like duh. But realistic best case scenario for the Giants is like probably 7-9, 8-8 if they somehow get to 9-7 and slip into a playoff spot. That's like the absolute ceiling for this team in my eyes. But the floor for this team is very low, realistically. There are people who are picking them as like the betting favorite to be the number 1 overall pick next year. So, and that's like a little concerning. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't want people to think I'm being a hater, because I think they're going to go like 7-9, 6-10, be a competitive team into December, hopefully.
7-9 is optimistic.
Yeah, and I am a little bit optimistic about this team because I'm a big Joe Judge fan. But
Yep.
it could hit the fan, and you could be a number 1 pick. It could be a top 5 pick again this year. And if it is, then you're looking at an edge rusher, like a stud pass rusher who is more guaranteed, as you were mentioning. And then also worst case scenario, because I did mention that article, if the Giants end up with the number 1 overall pick, we'll have to have a discussion. You'll say trade back. I'm going to have the discussion about
Trevor Lawrence.
There's going to be a quarterback on the board who's going to be very hard to pass up. But I don't want to talk about that. Good vibes only, good energy only heading into week 1 of the season. Danny Dimes is the next GOAT, and I'm ready to see him rock and roll against the Steelers on Monday.
Absolutely, but okay, damn it! Now you got me roped into this. Okay, no, I can't leave this untouched. Okay, and all the people listening right now, please like comment on this because I want to get your opinion too. If Trevor Lawrence is on the board for the Giants, do you take Trevor Lawrence and trade Daniel Jones because you know a team's gonna want Daniel Jones? He has looked good. He's gonna look good this year. I think so. And if people are offering a first-round pick for him, I think they do it. I think they take Trevor Lawrence and they trade Daniel Jones for another first-round pick.
Well, see, here's the thing:
is win-win.
I don't think they'd get a first-round pick for Jones in that scenario, because I think the only way they end up with the first overall pick is if Daniel Jones gets worse this year, and I don't think that's going to happen. That's why I don't think it's a possibility. I think Daniel Jones will get better this year. He'll take that step forward, and we'll be a better team because of it. But if for some reason he doesn't take that step forward, whether you want to attribute that to the COVID offseason, to learning another new playbook in 2 years, whether you want to attribute it to all that, it's a possibility that maybe he doesn't progress the way we think he will. I think he will, but you know what? Just think about it this way, right? There's only been 3 generational quarterbacks ever, right? That's what they say. They say it was John Elway. They say it was Peyton Manning and then Andrew Luck. Right. And they're saying the next one is Trevor Lawrence. He's the only next 4 generational quarterbacks over the past 50 to 100 years. So if he's there, I don't know, it kind of forces your hand. If you have the opportunity to take Trevor Lawrence, it's kind of you're kind of a fool not to in some sense, but
yeah,
we'll see,
you're
man.
Right. You're right.
It's not going to happen, though. It's not going to happen. Daniel Jones, 50 touchdown passes this year, 5,000 passing yards, and 10 rushing touchdowns. He's going to have 60 total touchdowns. It's going to be a hell of a year for Daniel Jones.
Simmer down on the 10 rushing touchdowns. I don't even want him running. I'd rather add those 10 to the passing category.
I said 50 passing and 10 rushing. That's 60 passing. Total.
Well, I'm down 60 passing and 0 touchdowns when I'm on the ground.
Nah. I want to see him hurdle people and, Daniel Jones, man. He's the GOAT.
All right. Anyway, back to reality. What do you think? I like that imaginary.
What is reality?
Yeah, I kind of like the 60 touchdown land.
Yeah, I like 60 touchdown land. I'm gonna go do that in Madden.
Yeah, that's the only place. There's 2 questions I have for you though. Okay, The first one is, and we'll start with the first one. What do you think about CB2 right now? Who is filling that spot? Isaac Yadom. I don't even know how to really say his last name, but I'm gonna say Yadom.
I think it's Yadom.
Yadom. All right,
that's
Isaac
how I
Yadom.
say it.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Isaac Yadom, Corey Ballantyne, Logan Ryan, Julian Love. Who do you see filling that role?
Logan Ryan.
You think so?
The more
I think this is
names
the first crack.
the more names you were throwing out there, the worse it was getting. It's got to be Logan Ryan. It's so scary. That is a scary position, cornerback too.
It is.
I think it has to be Logan Ryan just because it's a 6th-round pick out of Washburn with Corey Ballantyne. The dude's, I mean,
not ready.
It's not his fault he's not ready. Like, he's just probably not ready. I can't imagine that he is, and that's fine. Keep developing, keep being a solid depth piece, because he is a solid depth piece. He can go out there if he needs to, but I don't want him out there. Let's keep Logan Ryan at cornerback 2. I think Darnay Holmes, he's got to start, whether it's at CB2 or slot. I think he's going to start in the slot, and it's going to be great for him there. I really do believe in Darnay Holmes at slot cornerback. I think he'd be fine at CB2 either way, though, so whether it's Logan Ryan at CB2 or slot, that's what it is. It's either Darnay Holmes or Logan Ryan. I think you can interchange them in whichever position, and that's what the starting cornerback group is going to be in Week 1.
Right, and I'll give you some more insight and information on what Joe Judge is probably thinking. So this is what he said about Yadam. He said he's a physical cornerback rather. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
He's very good off the line of scrimmage. And that is really, really good for Patrick Graham's scheme because he plays 50% man coverage, and he really wants his guys shadowing. He wants his cornerback shadowing and playing press man coverage. So that's Yadam's strength. That's a former 3rd-round pick from the Denver Broncos. I think that maybe he could develop in that role, but it seems to me that the Giants are going to utilize more of a hot hand rotation. So I really, really anticipate seeing Logan Ryan getting the first crack. I see Yadam getting reps. I see Ballantyne getting reps, and I definitely see Darnay Holmes getting reps because they can interchange Logan Ryan and Holmes, right?
Yeah, that's what I think.
And here's something that might actually be kind of intricate that might make sense based on matchups. Let's say that we can obviously say that Darnay Holmes is faster and more agile at this point in his career than Logan Ryan, right? We can make that a clear observation.
Probably.
Let's say that. Let's say that the Giants are playing the Dallas Cowboys. They have CeeDee Lamb and they have Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. Let's just say they have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb on the field, right? Those two guys are going to be insane to stop in the first place. Obviously, you have James Bradbury on Amari Cooper. Now, with CeeDee Lamb, I might be more inclined to put... Well, actually, Cooper might be playing from the slot, but we know James Bradbury could actually move into the slot there. I would say that Darnay Holmes covers CeeDee Lamb over Logan Ryan. Because of the speed differential.
I don't know. That's interesting. To me, I think I would go with Logan Ryan just because of the experience. He's going up against a guy who's younger than him. He might be able to read him better. That's what I'm thinking. Also, I got to point this out. Isaac Yiadom, I just searched him on Twitter. I'm watching on a loop on Twitter of this play of him absolutely decking this guy, and it's sick. He's very good. He's very physical, very good in run support. There's a few clips out there of him just, literally just pounding into people in run support, which is pretty cool. And he had an interception last year. I didn't know that against the 49ers. So
yeah, no, he's a decent
player.
He
played a decent amount of snaps for the Broncos. Yeah, underrated.
I mean, think about it. They literally signed this guy a week ago, and now he's on the active roster.
He might be able to start this week. He might.
And we gave up a 7th-round conditional pick for him, by the way.
Yeah, he might be a starter on this team this year. We'll see.
Might be. He's just terrible in zone coverage. That's his primary weakness.
Well, we should be playing a lot of man, so just take him off the field when we're not.
I think that's why they hired Patrick Graham, by the way, because they realized that their team does not fit zone coverage schemes. Well, and that's what James Mitchell was forcing on this team. Well,
that's the thing. They were building a man coverage personnel, Jabril Peppers, DeAndre Baker. I don't know what the plan is with DeAndre Baker at this point. I don't know if he's getting cut or not. But DeAndre Baker was a press man cornerback when they hired Patrick Graham. He was supposed to be that top tier cornerback of the future who likes to play physical and press man. Janoris Jenkins, like you said last year, even all of the personnel pointed towards being a press man coverage team, and then they were just nah, we're gonna run zone. We're gonna have DeAndre Baker play 12 yards off the line of scrimmage on 3rd and 2 and just sit in
That's
a
crazy.
Hook zone. James Betcher, dude. That's a guy I want to fight. I say I want to fight you, Alex. I want to fight James Betcher.
He's a big guy. I might beat the crap out of you, dude.
That's okay. I'm willing to do it for Giants Nation.
But what does that tell you, though? what is the biggest takeaway from what you just told me?
That Pat Shurmur put together a putrid coaching staff.
Yes, but the biggest thing that tells me is that there was a very, very big miscommunication between Pat Shurmur and Dave Gettleman. They were not on the same page in building the roster. Now that is why Pat Shurmur was fired. Yeah.
It was. I was gonna throw shade at Gettleman, but I was like, nah, this is Shurmur's fault. But look, you're right though. You're right.
There's a reason. There's a reason that they kept Dave Gettleman and fired Pat Shurmur. I think obviously he was going to be the scapegoat always, but the reality is there was very big differences on both sides of their equation there. Dave Gettleman had a totally different mentality than Pat Shurmur. It was obvious, but what we're seeing now is the weirdest. Dave Gettleman just seems like he's in the middle of something he shouldn't be. And there are things that I love about Dave Gettleman and things that I hate about Dave Gettleman. But the one constant is that I never felt like things were going in the right direction. You know what I mean? Now I feel like we are in the right direction because Joe Judge is giving us the path. He's like laying the bricks, laying the foundation, for the pathway for us to follow. I never saw it until now, and I think it was because he's taking control of the roster. He's taking control of his units. He's being very, very detailed and fundamentalistic in his approach towards building these different positional groups and the players that fit specific roles. I mean, last year, like you mentioned, we had guys playing all over the place. Like, what the hell was Antoine Bethea doing in the deep secondary? What the hell was he doing? Why wasn't Julian Love starting? Why wasn't Julian Love starting the entire season?
Don't get me started on this, bro. Don't get me started.
I just want to freak out that they had Antoine Bethea playing free safety and not playing strong safety, or playing in like a linebacker role closer to the line of scrimmage. Yeah. He was better against the run. It's so goddamn obvious. It just pisses me off to remember how just inadequate this team performed and how just abysmal they were at every single group. And now I finally feel some sense of comfort. Knowing that like the players that we have are going to be playing their own freaking positions. They're not going to be, being put in positions to lose, to fail. That's what I have to say.
I agree. Yeah. You're very angry right now. I'm a little uncomfortable. No, I'm just kidding. No, I feel you, dude. Honestly, it was so frustrating these past few years. Shurmur in itself, that was just a frustrating experience because you saw a guy who had like a lot of potential as an offensive coordinator, as a head coach, and he didn't put it together. Whether it was clock management issues, roster issues, whatever it was, Pat Shurmur just, at the end of the day, he sucked, and his coaching staff sucked. And the prime example of that, which I have gotten very pissed about on many different episodes of this podcast, is Hal Hunter. The worst hiring by far that I've ever seen. The guy, I've said this statistic so many times, I'm going to say it one more time. Hal Hunter, 2016, the offensive line coach for the Cleveland Browns. They let up 66 sacks that season. He was fired. He wasn't in the league 2017. 2018, Pat Shurmur said, Hal Hunter, I like you. Come join my coaching staff while we have this terrible offensive line. That's the point, though. But that's the thing about Joe Judge now. This is a new team. This is Joe Judge's team, as we've been saying this whole time. And he has put together a staff that we can feel confident in because they have experience. They're proven commodities. Like Freddie Kitchens, he's not a proven commodity as a head coach. He was terrible there. But he is a former head coach. He's a proven commodity as a tight ends coach.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And same thing with Jason Garrett. Maybe he wasn't the best head coach, but as an offensive coordinator, he's a proven commodity. Mark Colombo on the offensive line is a proven commodity. They are all proven commodities in this coaching staff. It is experience. It is smart, detail-oriented. This is a coaching staff that we can feel confident in and believe in heading into this season and looking ahead towards the seasons after that. Joe Judge, I am the Joe Judge fan club. I am starting it. That is my fantasy football team name. I love Joe Judge. When I watched him dive into that pit of mud for that football, I started grinning ear to ear. I was so happy just to see the Giants players, the way they reacted to that. To see Joe Judge do that, it was so awesome. I love the guy. I love the culture that he's instilling in this team. Everybody's bought in. You can tell the players have bought in. I don't want to hear anything from any of these talking heads anymore. Shannon Sharp, I don't want to go on that rant again.
Daniel Ocho,
but yeah, him too. I love I just love what the Giants are building right now, honestly. And I haven't felt this way in a few years, but with Joe Judge, I love what he's doing with this team, and I'm very excited about the future. And I'm very excited for Week 1, starting a week from today, when the Giants kick the Steelers' ass on prime time. Let's get it.
If we can pull out a win in Week 1, I will be over the moon. It would be huge. But you really you fueled my anger talking about the worst goddamn coaching
I was
staff.
so uplifting. I've never been more uplifting than I am on this podcast. You have anger problems. It's not my fault.
I know. No, it's not even I have anger problems. It's Pat Shurmur that sparks the rare anger issue that I ever have. But can we just acknowledge, I can't even, gather my wits right now at how terrible the coaching staff Pat Shurmur put together was. Like you said, Hal Hunter, 66 sacks he allowed, his unit allowed? Yep. And Pat Shurmur said, that doesn't sound too bad. Let's hire him. And then they had...
They were buddies.
It doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. Okay, yeah. Screw the buddies part. We want to win games. He just hired his damn friends, okay?
His friends.
And now you have... Might I remind you? The best hire he had was Tyke Tolbert. That was the best hire he made.
That's true.
Now,
that was a good hire.
Let me tell you something. Mike Shula was the biggest waste of space this team has ever had. He was sitting there picking his ass while Pat Shurmur tried to run a football team, completely run the entire team. He didn't have much head coaching experience. He had a young team. The guy who came in and literally tried to call offensive plays and discipline his team. We had Janoris Jenkins cursing, saying bad stuff on Twitter, trying to get off the team. That's how bad we got.
And I think recently Janoris Jenkins tweeted about Pat Shurmur saying team didn't. I think he said something about the team not liking Pat Shurmur and not wanting to play for him. Like, he confirmed it because somebody asked him, did you guys like Pat Shurmur or no? And he just said no comment or something, clearly indicating his true feelings. So, I mean, we knew that already with Janoris because he literally sabotaged himself to get off the team.
Yeah.
But
it was so clear. They should have traded him. That's another thing, though. They should have traded Janoris Jenkins. Everybody was calling it.
Don't get me started on that. But
everybody said, trade Janoris Jenkins. We are losing. We suck. Get some value. And no, instead we wait until 3 days after the freaking deadline and Dave Gettleman cuts him. That's one of the things that I will not let Dave Gettleman get away with.
Yeah.
That's
Dave
a third-round
made
pick.
his fair share of mistakes, man. But it was interesting with Janoris Jenkins tweeting that because he was more indicating not just that he was not a fan of Shurmur, but he was indicating that the team in general wasn't. And that's probably a deciding factor for John Mara in the offseason. I know it was one of the deciding factors, but you know what? That's the difference, though. Now we see Joe Judge diving in the mud, which you never would have seen Macadouche do.
Never.
Or Pat Shurmur. But you see Joe Judge do it, and you see... and you love to see how the Giants players react to that. And like you mentioned, the camaraderie. It's exciting, and it looks like they've got somebody that they believe in and that they're ready to win with. And I am very ready to watch the Giants win some football games.
Me too. And like you've been mentioning, Joe Judge is just bringing a different mentality. Now, before we wrap up here, we got to talk about the Steelers. We got to talk about this matchup, what this is going to look like, guys. Because this is week 1 of a season that we've been waiting for quite some time, one that we might have even thought would have been canceled by now due to COVID. They're going through for it. They're going through with it. We're going to see football. It's going to be weird. I don't expect the quality to be at 100% because there's going to be no fans, no atmosphere. It's going to be strange. Now, let me read you off who the Steelers have, right? Let me read you off what they look like right now. Their best players are legit. I'm not. This is going to be a tough game for us. Right out of the gate, the Giants have one of the hardest schedules in the league. Think about this. Just think about this. They have Chase Claypool. They got this year. They got James Conner. They have
Juju.
They got Dobbs back. He's nothing. Ben Roethlisberger, Juju Smith-Schuster, Eric Ebron, whatever you want to say it, Joe Hayden, and the biggest. No, you know what the scariest person on the entire team is? Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, you know what? I'll say who's even scarier. T.J. Watt.
T.J. Watt.
This is a
T.J.
tough
Watt
defense.
and Minkah Fitzpatrick, and another one, Devin Bush.
Yeah, the Giants are being tested in week 1. Daniel Jones is being tested in week 1. He has his hands full. He's going to be thrown into a secondary that has Joe Hayden, Minka Fitzpatrick, and he's going to have TJ Watt off the edge, chasing him down, and then Devin Bush, very athletic linebacker in the middle of the field. So it's going to be a true test for this team, week 1. It's not going to be an easy matchup, but we'll see, man. We'll see.
It's going to be tough, man. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is going to be a win for the Giants. This is more than likely going to be a loss, but I want to see this team compete. It's a win in imagination land.
It's a win as long as we believe it's a win.
Yes, of course. But
reality is fake. Reality doesn't exist.
I think the offense can match up to their defense. I just don't think our defense can match up to their offense.
I think
that's my biggest
what it's going to come down to is a lack of film for the Steelers. The Steelers have a lack of film on the Giants. They don't know what the Giants are going to throw out there. We have a new coaching staff, new schemes, and all that. So if the Giants just get creative and they do some things that, the Steelers just don't see coming, flat out don't see it coming, it could pay off and it could work. And that, a couple small plays like that could give us the edge in the long run of that game.
Yeah.
So I think just the lack of film and the new coaching staff, if they could be very, creative with it, that could be what gives us the edge, because sometimes when it's a new team and you don't know what you're going up against, they can, you can underestimate them and they can surprise you. And that's what I'm hoping for with the Giants this week, because if you look at the two rosters, you know which one you'd rather have. You know which one is better. It's the Steelers. They've got proven stars on defense and on offense. Mm-hmm. The Giants really aren't proven anywhere. They've got a lot of young guys with potential, but you know what? Maybe the potential is starting to be realized. Maybe this is the year, I'm hopeful about it. I definitely think this is a winnable game for the Giants. I'm not going to say it's a total loss for sure. It's a winnable game, but it's going to be a tough one. It should be a hard matchup. I don't think it should be a close game, hopefully. If it's not a close game, I'm going to be in the fetal position crying on the kitchen table. But it should be a close game. Yeah, on the kitchen table.
Look. Okay, this is what I have to say. There are two factors that will win this game for the Giants. Mm-hmm. Two factors. These are the biggest ones.
Coaching.
They have to win the turnover differential.
Mm-hmm.
They have to win that. They cannot turn the ball over. If they turn the ball over, they're screwed. The second one, they have to get to Big Ben. If they can get after Big Ben and put him under pressure, he's not mobile anymore. He is slow as shit. Okay, he's slow as hell. He's coming off shoulder surgery. It's his first game back. Okay, he's gonna be rusty. We have to make sure we take advantage of that rust. If we don't turn the ball over on offense and we get after Big Ben and we actually get some hits on him, shake him up and rattle his bones, we will be in a good position to win. That is the recipe, and they know that. The Giants know that.
I agree. The turnover battle is definitely, week to week, that's the main thing. You want to win the turnover battle, of course, but especially, with Daniel Jones, he did have the fumbling problem last year. One of the main things I'm looking for in this game, I don't want to see Daniel Jones fumble. That's got to be one of the top priorities. If Daniel Jones fumbles, just the memes on Twitter are going to suck, but at the same time, it is kind of concerning for the future of the season. If he fumbles even once in this game, we've heard so much about him adding strength and working on this. We need to see it show up in week 1. I don't want to see him fumble.
I agree.
So, but, like I said, coaching, that could be what it comes down to, man. We have a lot of confidence in this coaching staff. They could prove us right this week, and they could do some tricky things, be creative, and they could give us the edge.
Yeah, no, you're right. And, this is it, man. This is the week that they're going to be training. They're practicing for the Steelers this week. It's all about matchups now. They're going to be looking at film. They're going to be tailoring their style, their schemes to face off against the Steelers. And I am so happy to say that, because we've been waiting quite some time for it. But is there anything else you want to add before we tune out?
I want to say,
prediction.
Thank you guys for your support throughout this offseason. It's been a crazy offseason, and it's been tough. But football season is here, so we're excited for that. I hope you guys are too, so stay tuned, because we're going to be covering game by game. We're going to be doing, 1 to 2 podcast episodes a week, and then I've also got plans to be doing some film breakdowns each week. So, usually every Friday I'll preview the upcoming game and I'll review the last game. So this week I'm hoping to do a preview on this game, break down the Steelers a little bit and the Giants heading into the season, just a little breakdown of what we liked and didn't like from last year. So stay tuned for that weekly, tons of content we're going to be churning out for you guys, and we can't wait to get the season started. and we hope you guys are excited too. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good one.